On July 11, 2013, three young men decided to go fishing off a beach in Jacksonville, Florida. That afternoon, a young dolphin was swimming in the shallows, possibly practicing its hunting skills in the warm summer waves, possibly having wandered a little too far from his spot. Either way, he bit the young man's hook, baited with a tasty treat, and the young men wrestled in their catch. I'd imagine that was quite a struggle. A year-old dolphin calf is a strong animal, an intelligent, emotionally evolved animal who would have been terrified to be pulled out of the water and in pain from the struggle. An animal that's protected by federal law. The Marine Mammal Protection Act strictly prohibits harming marine mammals like dolphins. It recognizes them as sentient and deserving of protection. This covers harassment, causing annoyance that could interfere with natural behavior, causing injury, and even prohibits messing with the courts. It's pretty comprehensive. Now, in order to fish in Florida, you have to have a license. This license includes guidelines about how to handle accidental catches, including instructions on whom to contact if a protected animal is unintentionally hooked. Animals such as sea turtles, manatees, and dolphins. How do I know? Because I hooked a sea turtle in that same area, something I didn't record as I was busy getting help and trying to keep the turtle comfortable while I waited for assistance, as you're supposed to. But did these three young men call? Did they attempt to remove the hook and return the animal to its pod? No. Instead of reaching out for help, they staged a photo shoot with the dolphin. Not in the shallows, but rather they pulled it onto the beach where it would be exposed to the sun. Dolphins depend heavily on water not just for hydration, but also to regulate their body temperature. Being out of the water is dangerous, especially for a young calf. While dolphins do breathe air, they dehydrate quickly. Out of the water, they overheat really fast. The weight of their own bodies can also injure their internal organs when they are removed from the buoyancy of the ocean. Breaching takes work to learn and develop the needed muscle. But the young men got their pictures, holding the dolphin in their arms, oblivious to the suffering they were causing. The calf died as they took their pics, huge grins on their faces, holding the animal cruelly feet from the water. He saw the waves and heard them hitting the beach as he died, afraid, in pain, and alone. I hope he heard the calls of his mother and family, just because I want him to have had some small comfort in the end. Luckily for the Pinterest aesthetic, dolphins don't express those feelings on their faces. It might have ruined the effect. Did they then have the decency to at least call to have the now deceased animal properly examined and disposed of? One tiny example of empathy and respect for another sentient being. Nope. They dumped it on the beach under the pier and put their pictures online. You'd think the young men might go home and consider their actions, perhaps realizing they messed up and feel some remorse? Not the case. There was some brief outrage online, but ultimately it didn't lead anywhere. You'd think this kind of wanton disregard for the law and the natural world would be met with appropriate reprisal, but if you thought this was a story of justice, well, you'd be wrong, at least for now. The young men who committed the crime said, when confronted, the catch of a lifetime as bycatch from the beach, whatever, completely dismissing his actions. Of course, when he received backlash, he did backtrack, and then came the inevitable lies. The trophy of a lifetime had actually washed ashore. They tried to help it. It was just an accident. In court trials, attempting to cover up a crime is considered proof of understanding the crime was wrong. Lying to avoid punishment means you recognize your actions have negative consequences. Now, the young man was 17 at the time of this incident. I'm not sure how old the other two were, but the lack of blurred faces in researching leads me to believe they were at least 18. And some people will argue 17 is just a kid. They wouldn't know any better. I would say that this is an excuse that infantilizes our young and shields them from growth. Teen crime is a serious problem all over the world, with teens becoming more bold in their crimes, safe in the knowledge they will be protected from all repercussions. Some countries are even considering changing their laws to address this shift. The reality is that when young people believe they can act without facing consequences, as seems to be the case here, it sets a problematic precedent. And should one not prosecute on the grounds of being 17? Alright, his parents were legally responsible for his actions. Sadly, this isn't even an isolated incident of injuring wild dolphins for selfies. In 2016 and 2017, young dolphins were removed from the census of the living when tourists wanted selfies. And in 2024, one was found on another beach not far from the location of today's case. What the hell are laws worth if we don't use them? How are we supposed to protect anything if we won't use the tools we have? And violating the MMPA carries a year in prison and a $20,000 fine for first-time offenses. But it has no teeth if we don't use it. Equally, I must ask, should anyone involved in this incident or any other that misuses wildlife in such a way be allowed the privilege of holding any permit? I mean, come on, if you're going to let these guys walk on this, at least bar them from holding any fishing or hunting permits in future. I personally believe that we should have a register for egregious mistreatment of animals. Violent crimes, including wildlife or clout, should be its own unique designation, similar to how we classify hate crimes or crimes against the vulnerable, and that they should be barred from the privilege of interacting with wildlife unsupervised across the country. Maybe that's harsh, but something has to change. My research did not give me all the research I wanted about this case, but it did yield a petition asking that authorities investigate and bring those involved to justice. So I'll be including a link to sign it, and I hope everyone does. This is not something that can just sit in condemnation without action. I'll also be including a link that helps you find your representative for those who want to write and ask for scrutiny. The more who take the time to call or email, the higher the chances of actually being heard. I know I got a bit heated on this, sorry. I appreciate your taking the time to watch this, and I hope we can get some much needed scrutiny on the aftermath of this terrible act of violence against an innocent animal. I'm not going to ask that you like, subscribe, or share this video. I'm just going to ask that you take a minute to sign that petition. Anyone who does, please comment and I'll give you a shout out in my next episode. Thank you for hearing me.